You have some nerve digging through things that were never yours to see. Those messages were between family, not for you to twist into some grand conspiracy. Your brother came to me the second he realized what you had. He said you were already talking to people outside the gates, spreading poison about the accounts. I built our name in this community from nothing. If you keep waving those screenshots around, you will not just hurt me, you will burn every bridge we have left.
Sign the agreement, Emily. Keep your mouth shut and let this die. Or you will learn exactly how fast a family can decide you were never one of us. Hi, my name is Emily Thompson. I'm 28 years old.
The words landed like stones dropped into still water. My father stood in the doorway of my bungalow inside the gated coastal retreat in Sarasota, Florida, blocking the afternoon light. His voice stayed low, but every syllable carried the weight of someone who expected obedience without question. I had spent the last 3 weeks piecing together deleted message screenshots from a shared family cloud backup I only accessed because my mother asked me to help clear old files. What I found was not a misunderstanding. It was years of quiet transfers out of the family trust account my grandmother had set up for her grandchildren. Money moved into personal accounts my father controlled, used to cover bad coastal property flips, and to keep up appearances with the other residents behind the gates.
I had not planned to confront him that afternoon. The screenshots were still on my phone, backed up twice, because something in my gut had told me to protect the evidence the moment I saw the first thread between my father and my brother James. James had known. He had helped route the transfers through a shell account he controlled, so the monthly statements would still look balanced. The trust that was supposed to be there when any of us needed a real safety net was empty. It had been empty for a long time.
My father did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He simply held out a single sheet of paper, an agreement to never discuss the family finances with anyone inside or outside the gates, and waited like the outcome was already decided. I looked at the paper, then at him, and felt the first sharp crack in the version of my life I had been living.
I took the paper without signing it. I folded it once and slipped it into my back pocket. "I need time to think," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. He gave me a tight smile that did not reach his eyes and left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him with a sound that felt final.
That night, I called my best friend, Sophia Lang, who lived 3 streets over, inside the same gated community. We had been close since I moved here 2 years earlier for a project manager role at a local marine conservation nonprofit. Sophia worked in community events and knew everyone. I told her I had found something ugly about the family accounts and that I was trying to decide what to do. She listened. She asked careful questions. She told me to sleep on it and that we would talk more tomorrow. I hung up feeling a little less alone.
The next morning, the group chat for the community social committee lit up with messages I was not tagged in. Screenshots of my conversation with Sophia appeared in the chat, blurry but readable enough. Someone had already started asking if I was okay and whether the stress of my job was getting to me. By lunch, the whispers had reached the tennis courts and the clubhouse. People who usually waved when I walked my dog now found urgent reasons to look at their phones.
I went to see Thomas Reed, the current head of the community board, and someone my father had cultivated as an ally for years. Thomas had always been polite to me at block parties. I showed him one of the cleaner screenshots, the one where my father and James discussed moving another $20,000 to cover a margin call. Thomas read it, handed my phone back, and told me families had disagreements all the time, and that airing private matters in a small community like ours could have consequences for everyone involved. He suggested I talk to my father again and let cooler heads prevail. He did not offer to help. He offered to stay out of it.
That was the moment the ground shifted under me. My father had not just been moving money. He had already started shaping the story. And my brother had helped him do it.
Over the next 10 days, the pressure built in small, precise ways. My mother called twice each time, sounding exhausted and asking me to think about the bigger picture and how hard my father had worked to give us this life inside the gates. James sent one text. "Stop. You're making it worse for all of us." I did not reply. I kept the screenshots backed up on a separate drive and on a cloud account only I could access. Sophia stopped answering my texts after the 4th day. When I saw her at the community pool, she gave me a quick brittle smile and turned back to the group she was with. 2 of the women in that group had been at my house for wine nights 3 weeks earlier. Now they looked through me like I was already gone.
The final escalation came on a Tuesday evening when my father showed up again, this time with James. They stood on my small front porch while the automatic gate lights clicked on behind them. James would not meet my eyes. My father held another copy of the non-disclosure agreement in a pen.
"You have a choice," he said, voice flat. "Sign it tonight and we move forward like this never happened. Or keep pushing and find out what it costs to stay here when the people who actually matter have decided you are a liability."
James finally looked at me. His face was tight with something that might have been guilt or might have been resentment. "Dad's right," he said quietly. The trust was already strained. What he did kept us from losing the house here. You exposing it now just punishes everyone for something that can't be undone. I felt the air leave my lungs in one slow, cold breath. The brother I had grown up with, the one who used to sneak me extra dessert when we were kids, was standing beside our father and helping him finish the job. The deleted messages had not been an accident. They had been insurance he thought he would never need.
I did not sign the paper. I closed the door, locked it, and sat on the floor with my back against it until my legs stopped shaking. Outside, their footsteps faded down the walkway. The automatic gate hummed open and shut again. The next morning, the community newsletter email arrived in my inbox. It announced a special residents-only meeting to discuss maintaining the integrity and privacy standards that make our neighborhood special. My name was not mentioned. It did not need to be.
I spent that day packing what would fit in my car. I called my nonprofit job and took the 2 weeks of vacation I had saved. I did not tell them why. I did not tell anyone why. By evening, the group chat had gone silent. For me, either I had been removed or the messages had simply stopped appearing. Sophia never called back.
That night, I sat on the edge of my bed with the folder of screenshots in my lap and cried until my throat hurt. Not because I had lost the money. The money had never really been mine to begin with. I cried because the version of my life I had built inside these gates, the friends, the sense of belonging, the quiet belief that family meant something even when it was difficult, had been a story someone else was telling, and they had decided I no longer got to be in it.
I left at dawn the next morning. The guard at the gate waved me through without asking questions. I drove north with the folder on the passenger seat and the taste of salt air fading behind me. My hand stayed steady on the wheel even when the tears started again. I did not look back at the gates in the rearview mirror.
I had chosen to walk away from the only version of family I had ever known. There was no victory in it, no dramatic confrontation where truth triumphed and everyone saw the light. Just a quiet, heavy door closing, and the long road ahead, with nothing left to prove, and no one left to prove it to.
The road stretched empty ahead as I drove away from the only place I had called home for the last 2 years. The folder of screenshots sat on the seat beside me like a loaded weapon I had not yet decided how to fire. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, but I kept my eyes forward. Turning back was no longer an option.
I checked into a roadside motel 20 miles north of the gates. the kind with thin walls and a flickering vacancy sign. The clerk barely looked up from his phone when I paid in cash. I locked the door behind me, dropped the folder on the cheap desk, and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in days, the silence felt almost clean. No group chats pinging, no neighbors pretending not to stare. Just the low hum of the air conditioner and the sound of my own breathing.
My phone lit up with a call from my mother. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice came through tight and careful, the way it always did when she was delivering one of my father's messages without actually saying his name. "Emily, sweetheart, I know you're upset, but running off like this isn't solving anything. Your father is willing to let this go if you just come back and sign the paper. The community doesn't need to know any of this."
I laughed once, short and sharp. The community already knows Mom, or at least they know the version he fed them. She sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. People talk when they're worried about their own homes and reputations. You're making it worse by staying away. Come home. We can talk like adults.
Adults don't siphon money from a trust that was supposed to belong to all of us and then call it necessary, I said. My voice stayed level. I was proud of that. And adults don't help cover it up and then act surprised when someone notices. There was a pause. When she spoke again, the warmth had vanished. "Your brother is devastated by what you're doing. He's always looked out for you. Maybe you should think about that before you burn every bridge you have left."
She hung up before I could answer. I stared at the screen until it went dark. My brother. The same brother who had helped route the transfers. The same brother who had stood on my porch the night before and told me the trust had been strained and that exposing it punished everyone. Devastated. Right. I opened the private community group on my phone. The messages had moved fast while I was driving. Someone had posted a screenshot of a blurry text thread, mine and Sophia's from days earlier, captioned only with, "Some people don't know when to stop." The comments underneath were careful but clear. She always seemed a little intense. Families fight, but this feels like she's trying to hurt everyone. Thomas is right. We need to protect the peace here. Thomas Reed had replied with a single thumbs-up emoji. No one defended me. Not even the people who had smiled at me over coffee at the clubhouse 2 weeks ago.
Sophia had left the group entirely.
I closed the app and opened my email instead. There was already a message from a lawyer whose name I didn't recognize, sent from an address tied to my father's real estate contacts. The subject line read, "Notice a potential defamation claim." The body was short and polite and terrifying. It suggested that any further distribution of private family correspondence could result in legal action to protect the reputations of all parties involved. They gave me 48 hours to confirm I would delete the materials and cease contact with community members regarding the matter.
I saved the email to the same drive as the screenshots. Then I forwarded the whole folder, every deleted message, thread, every transfer record, every time-stamped conversation between my father and my brother to my personal cloud account under a new name no one else knew. If they wanted to threaten me with lawyers, I could at least make sure the evidence didn't disappear with me. The next morning, I woke to 3 missed calls from an unknown number and 1 text from my brother.
"James, we need to talk. Not at the house, not with Dad, just us." I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. The rest of me needed to hear what he would say when our father wasn't standing 2 feet away. I texted back a single word: "Where?" He named a diner off the highway, the kind of place no one from inside the gates would ever go. Neutral ground, or as close as we were going to get.
I drove there with the folder in my bag and my stomach in knots. The diner smelled like old coffee and fryer grease. James was already in a corner booth nursing a cup of something dark. He looked older than he had 2 nights ago, tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. He didn't stand when I slid into the seat across from him. He just pushed a second cup of coffee toward me like we were still normal siblings meeting for breakfast.
"You shouldn't have left like that," he said quietly. "It made you look guilty." I took a sip of the coffee. It was bitter and burnt. Guilty of what? Noticing that the trust Grandma set up is empty because Dad's been bleeding it for years.
James glanced around the diner even though no one was close enough to hear. It wasn't supposed to be like this. He told me it was temporary. A bridge loan for one of the properties that went sideways, then another. Then it kept happening. By the time I realized how much was gone, saying no would have meant losing everything we had left inside the gates. "So you helped him hide it," I said. The words came out flat. "You helped him lie to me. To Mom. To everyone."
He met my eyes then. There was no defensiveness left, just exhaustion. I helped because he said if the community found out we were broke on paper, we'd lose the house, the standing, everything. And you, he stopped, swallowed. You were always the one who got to walk away clean. You had your job, your little bungalow, your friends who actually liked you for you. I didn't have that. I had the family name and the expectation that I'd keep it clean.
I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just the sharp, clear understanding that my brother had chosen sides a long time ago and I had been too busy trying to keep the peace to notice. "You could have told me," I said. "Instead of letting me find out from deleted messages, like some stranger."
James looked down at his hands. "I was going to, after the last transfer. But then you found the screenshots first, and everything moved too fast. Dad said if I didn't back him up, you'd destroy what was left. I believed him." The waitress came by to refill our cups. We both went quiet until she left. When James spoke again, his voice was lower.
"There's more you don't know. The lawyer Dad's using. He's already drafting something that makes it look like you've been unstable for months. Stress from work, isolation, whatever story fits. They're going to say the screenshots are edited or taken out of context, and the community," he shook his head, "they're already choosing the version that lets them keep their dinner parties and their property values intact."
I pushed the coffee away. My hands had started to shake, and I didn't want him to see it. "So what now? You came here to warn me, or to finish what Dad started?" James was quiet for a long moment. When he answered, the words landed like the first crack in something I had still been hoping might hold.
"I came because I'm tired of lying to you, and because I know what's coming next if you don't walk away completely. They're not going to stop at the defamation threat. Dad's already talking to people about having the bungalow lease reviewed. Your name on the community roster, everything tied to the family. He'll cut you off from all of it if you keep pushing."
I stood up. The folder felt heavier in my bag than it should have. Thanks for the coffee, James, and for finally being honest about which side you picked. He didn't try to stop me. He just watched me walk out the door with an expression I couldn't quite read. Regret, maybe? Or the kind of relief that comes when the worst thing you've been dreading finally happens out loud.
I drove back toward the motel with the windows down, letting the warm Florida air hit my face. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown lawyer number. This one was shorter. "We have a signed statement from multiple residents confirming concerning behavior on your part over the past several weeks. Further distribution of private materials will be treated as harassment. This is your final notice."
I pulled into the motel parking lot and sat in the car with the engine off. The folder was still in my bag. The screenshots were still safe in the cloud. But the life I had built inside those gates, the one where I had friends and a place at the table, and the quiet belief that blood meant something, was already gone. My father had made sure of it. My brother had helped. And the people I had called neighbors had chosen comfort over truth without missing a beat.
I had 48 hours before the next legal threat landed. I had no job connections left inside the community that would speak for me. I had no one left to call who wouldn't hang up or forward the call to my father. For the first time since I had found those messages, I let myself feel the full weight of what I had done by refusing to sign. I had chosen the truth over the only family I had ever known, and the truth had cost me everything I thought I was protecting.
I rested my forehead against the steering wheel and let the tears come. They were quiet this time. Not the angry, shaking kind, just the slow, heavy kind that come when you finally understand you are completely alone and there is no one left to blame but the people who were supposed to love you. My phone lit up one more time. A single text from James. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner, but it's too late now. Don't come back. They're already moving on the lease.
I read it twice. Then I turned the phone off, wiped my face with the back of my hand, and reached for the folder again. The evidence was still there. The truth was still there. But the cost of carrying it had just gone up again, and I was running out of places left to stand.
I sat in the car for another 20 minutes after reading James's message, the engine ticking as it cooled. The text glowed on the screen like a final verdict I had already known was coming. They were moving on the lease. My father had decided I no longer belonged inside the gates, and the people who ran the community were happy to help him enforce it. I turned the phone off, slid it into the folder with the screenshots, and started the car again.
I drove to a small storage unit I had rented months earlier for work files and old boxes. It was outside the gates in a strip of warehouses that smelled like diesel and hot asphalt. I spent the rest of the day moving the few things that were truly mine out of the bungalow. Clothes, books, the framed photo of my grandmother that had always sat on my desk. The property manager met me at the door with a manila envelope and 2 men in work boots. The lease was being terminated, effective immediately for conduct detrimental to community standards. I signed the papers without arguing. Fighting would have required money and energy I no longer had.
By evening, I was back at the motel with everything I owned packed into the trunk of my car. The folder sat on the passenger seat again. I had one move left. I opened my laptop and drafted a single email to Thomas Reed and 2 other board members whose addresses I still had. I attached the cleanest, most damning threads from the screenshots, nothing edited, nothing exaggerated. The subject line read, "Only what was actually happening with the family trust." I added one line in the body, "I'm not asking you to take sides. I'm asking you to look." Then I hit send and closed the laptop before I could second-guess it.
The reply came faster than I expected. Thomas wrote back within the hour. His message was short and final. Emily, the board has reviewed the materials you sent. We believe this is a private family matter that has been unnecessarily escalated. Any further contact with residents regarding these issues will be considered harassment. Your access to community facilities has been revoked. We wish you the best in your future endeavors.
That was it. No questions. No request for the rest of the evidence. Just a clean, professional door slammed shut by people who had shared coffee with me 2 weeks earlier. My father had already won the narrative. The screenshots were now private family drama that threatened the peace. The truth had unraveled exactly as he wanted it to, loud enough to discredit me, quiet enough to protect him.
My phone rang while I was still staring at Thomas's email. James's name lit the screen. I almost didn't answer, but I needed to hear whatever came next. "I saw what you sent," he said when I picked up. His voice was low and rough, like he had been drinking or crying or both. Dad already knew it was coming. He had the board ready. You walking away quietly would have been better for everyone.
Better for who, I asked. The sarcasm in my own voice surprised me. For the people still pretending the trust exists. For you who got to keep whatever cut you took. There was a long silence. When James spoke again, the words came out in a rush like he had been holding them for months, and they finally broke loose.
He promised me the bungalow if I kept quiet.
Said once you were out of the picture, he'd transfer the lease to me. I told myself it was just paperwork, that you'd land on your feet anyway, because you always do. But it wasn't just the bungalow. He's been pulling from the trust for 3 years, not just to cover the bad investments, to pay off personal loans he took out in Mon's name, to keep the cars and the club memberships and the illusion that we were the family everyone inside the gates wanted to be. I helped because I was scared of what would happen if it all fell apart, and because part of me believed I deserved more than you did for staying.
The line went quiet, except for his breathing. I felt the last small piece of hope I had been carrying crack and fall away. My brother had not just covered for our father. He had been waiting for my removal like it was a promotion he had earned by keeping his mouth shut. "You should have told me the truth when you still could," I said. My voice sounded far away, even to me. Before I had to find it in deleted messages, like some stranger hacking into the family.
"I know," James said. "I'm sorry. But it's done now. Dad's already told everyone you're having some kind of breakdown from work stress. The board believes him. They want to believe him. If you stay in the area, they'll make it harder. You should go."
I didn't say goodbye. I just ended the call and sat on the edge of the motel bed with the phone in my hand until the screen went dark. The emotional breakdown I had been holding back for weeks finally arrived. It wasn't loud. It was the kind that empties you out, shoulders shaking, breath catching. The kind where you realize the people who raised you and the brother you grew up with had been willing to erase you to keep their version of the story intact. I cried until my throat hurt and my eyes burned. Then I washed my face, packed the last of my things, and drove.
I found a small one-bedroom rental in a quiet town 30 miles inland the next day. It was nothing like the bungalow, faded carpet, thin walls, a kitchen that had seen better decades, but it was mine. No gates, no board, no one who knew the name Thompson and expected me to smile through the lie. I transferred what was left of my savings to cover first and last month's rent and spent the following week moving in alone. My non-profit job let me go remote for the transition. I told them I needed space after a family situation. They didn't ask for details.
The first night in the new place, I sat on the floor with the folder in my lap and let myself feel the full cost. I had lost the home I loved. I had lost the friends who had chosen comfort over truth. I had lost the brother I thought I still had. My father had kept everything the house, the standing, the narrative. He had won. I had the evidence and the empty satisfaction of knowing I had been right. It did not feel like enough.
But somewhere in the middle of that long, quiet night, something else settled in. I had chosen not to sign the paper. I had chosen not to keep pretending the trust was whole, and the family was whole, and the gated life was worth the silence. I had chosen the truth, even when it cost me the only people who were supposed to protect me. That choice had broken something in me. It had also freed something. For the first time in years, I did not have to manage anyone else's version of reality. I did not have to smile at dinners where the money on the table was stolen from my own future. I did not have to wonder which lie I was supposed to protect next.
I blocked every number tied to my father, my mother, and my brother. I did not send a final message or demand an apology. I simply removed them from the places they could still reach me. The folder went into a locked drawer. I did not need to carry it every day anymore. The truth was mine. What other people chose to believe about it was no longer my responsibility.
Weeks later, I was sitting on the small balcony of the new apartment watching the sun set over a strip of ordinary trees when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. When I did, it was a woman from the community board I barely knew. She spoke quickly like she was afraid of being overheard.
I just wanted you to know, some of us saw the email you sent. We didn't speak up then. We should have. But your father, he made it very clear what would happen if anyone questioned the story. I'm sorry, that's all. I just thought you should hear it from someone.
She hung up before I could respond. I sat with the phone in my hand and felt the smallest, sharpest flicker of something that was not quite victory and not quite peace. It was the knowledge that the lie had not been as airtight as my father believed. Some people had seen the truth and stayed quiet anyway. That was their choice. Mine had already been made.
I did not call her back. I did not reach out to anyone still inside the gates. I went inside, made dinner in my small kitchen, and ate it at the table that was mine alone. The quiet around me was not the heavy silence of the motel or the watchful silence of the community. It was the quiet that comes after you have stopped waiting for people to become who you needed them to be.
My father kept his house and his reputation. My brother kept whatever piece of the lie he had bargained for. The community kept its comfortable story. I kept the truth and the knowledge that I had refused to help them bury it. That was not the ending I had wanted. It was the ending I could live with.
Blood had never meant loyalty. It had only ever meant the people who were willing to protect the story at any cost, including the cost of the person standing in front of them asking for the truth. I had paid that cost. And in the small, ordinary apartment with no gates and no one left to impress, I was finally free of the debt.
Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the truth you couldn't ignore, drop your thoughts below. What would you have done when the people who should have protected you became the ones you needed protection from?